73% of enterprise AI pilots never reach production. That's not a failure rate. That's the norm. According to McKinsey's 2026 Enterprise AI Survey, nearly 3 out of 4 organizations that invest time, capital, and executive attention into AI initiatives watch them stall in the lab. The pilots work. The teams celebrate. Then nothing ships. The question isn't whether this will happen to you. The question is why it's happening and what separates the 27% who actually scale. You've seen this movie before. Maybe you're living it right now. Your data science team delivers a compelling prototype. The initial results look promising. Stakeholders nod in board meetings. A timeline gets set. Momentum builds. Then something invisible stalls it. Not technical problems, those get solved. Not budget constraints. Those get approved. Something structural. Organizational. Almost architectural breaks between the lab and the factory floor. Your CTO can't explain it. Your CFO won't fund the next phase. Your operations team says the infrastructure isn't ready. Your compliance officer needs documentation that doesn't exist 6 months later. The pilot folder sits in a shared drive. And your next AI initiative gets approved based on the same broken process that killed the last one. The cost isn't just the money you spent on infrastructure and talent. It's opportunity cost. It's the competitive position you surrendered to rivals who figured out how to actually deploy AI. It's credibility. After the third failed pilot, boards stop approving AI budgets altogether. That's when AI becomes a cost center instead of a competitive weapon. And by 2026, according to Gartner, organizations that haven't moved from pilots to production are already losing market share to those who have. This isn't a technical problem with a technical solution. The best engineering team in Southeast Asia can build the most elegant model. And it will still die in production if the organizational infrastructure isn't there to sustain it. What we're covering in the next 8 minutes is the operating model framework that separates the 27% who scale AI from the 73% who don't. 3 structural reasons pilots fail. 3 corresponding shifts in how you organize, fund, and measure AI work. And 1 company in Singapore that rewired their entire approach and went from 5 failed pilots to 3 successful production deployments in 18 months. By the end of this, you'll know exactly where your organization is breaking and exactly what to fix first. First insight: pilots fail because they're organized as science projects, not business systems. Here's the fundamental misalignment. Your innovation team, your data scientists, they're incentivized to explore, to experiment, to prove a concept works. That's their job and they do it brilliantly. But production requires something entirely different. It requires stability, monitoring, documentation, governance, version control, and the ability to fail safely at scale. Those are not the same skill sets. And they're definitely not the same mindsets. According to recent research from the World Economic Forum's 2026 AI implementation study, 64% of organizations structure AI initiatives within their innovation or advanced analytics teams rather than their core operational functions. That structure almost guarantees failure in production. Consider Grab, the ride-hailing platform operating across Southeast Asia and India. Early in their AI journey, they ran pilots in their recommendation engine through a skunkworks team. Brilliant people, cutting-edge techniques. The model showed promise. Then they tried to hand it off to the operational platform team. And everything froze. Different infrastructure assumptions, different SLA requirements, different failure modes. The innovation team had no incentive to document their work the way production needs it documented. The operations team had no incentive to accept code that didn't fit their deployment standards. The model died between the handoff. Here's what they changed. They embedded a production engineer and a DevOps specialist inside the innovation team from day one of the pilot, not at handoff, from day one. That person's job wasn't to slow down research. It was to translate research into production-ready architecture in real time. That single structural change moved their next AI initiative from pilot to production in 16 weeks instead of the 18 months their previous attempts had taken. Your application. Stop treating pilots as separate from production. From the first sprint of your next AI initiative, your product team, your infrastructure team, and your data team own the project together, not handoff. Co-ownership from hypothesis to deployment. If you're running pilots without a production owner in the room, you've already lost second insight. Pilots fail because success is measured wrong. In a pilot, you measure model accuracy, AUC score, precision and recall. Those are legitimate metrics for a prototype. But they measure whether the model works in theory, not whether it creates value in practice. According to Deloitte's 2026 AI Impact Report, 58% of failed AI initiatives had models that performed exactly as expected, but never delivered measurable business impact. The model was right. The business outcome was invisible. This happens because the pilot team and the business team aren't speaking the same language. The data scientist reports a 12% improvement in classification accuracy and assumes that's a win. The finance team needs to know what that accuracy improvement actually means in revenue, cost reduction, or risk mitigation. If the model classifies customer churn risk 12% more accurately, but the business model doesn't have a systematic way to act on those predictions at scale, you've optimized for a metric that doesn't matter. Consider an Indian financial services company that built an AI model to identify high-value customers for cross-sell targeting. The model was technically excellent. It had an F1 score of 0.87. Perfect pilot metrics. But when they tried to hand it to the marketing team asked a question the data team couldn't answer. What's the actual incremental revenue from acting on this model? Not from the model's accuracy. From the business process that uses it. They'd optimized for model performance without connecting it to a business outcome that could be measured, monitored, and defended in front of a CFO. Their recovery. They rebuilt the entire success framework. Instead of reporting model accuracy, they reported customer acquisition cost for the high-value segment, incremental revenue per customer, and cost per prediction. Suddenly, the pilot wasn't about AI. It was about a business outcome that every stakeholder understood. Suddenly, it was worth scaling your application. Before you measure your next AI pilot, define the financial metric it has to impact. Not the model metric, the business metric. What does success look like to your CFO? To your customer? To your operational team? Build measurement around that, not around algorithmic performance. If you can't trace your model's output to a business outcome, you don't have a business case yet. You just have a model. Third insight. Pilots fail because the infrastructure assumption is wrong. Most organizations build AI pilots in a sandbox environment. Clean data. Controlled conditions. The infrastructure isn't constrained by what's real. Then at scale, the model hits production systems, which are messy, distributed, legacy dependent, and built on assumptions that contradict what the model needs to succeed. The model was right in the sandbox. The infrastructure can't support it in the real world. According to IDC's 2026 Global Data Sphere report, 71% of enterprises still operate on infrastructure that was designed for batch processing, not real-time AI inference. Your model might need predictions in milliseconds. Your infrastructure might be built on nightly batch processes that complete at 3 in the morning. Those aren't compatible. And you won't discover that incompatibility until the pilot is already done and you're trying to scale. Take a major Indian e-commerce platform that built a recommendation engine pilot. Beautiful model. Predicted user preferences with high accuracy in their test environment. Then they tried to integrate it into their live platform and discovered that their data lake didn't have the refresh rates the model needed. The model required up-to-date user behavior signals every 15 minutes. Their data infrastructure updated every 6 hours. You can't run a real-time model on batch infrastructure. The pilot died. Their fix: they didn't rebuild the model. They rebuilt the infrastructure assumption. Instead of trying to retrofit the model to batch infrastructure, they built a real-time feature store from day one of the next pilot, not after. From the beginning. That meant higher upfront cost. But it meant they weren't surprised at scale. The model deployed cleanly because the infrastructure was designed for the model's actual requirements, not sandbox requirements. Your application. In your next AI pilot, run a production infrastructure assessment in week 1. What data refresh rates do you actually need? What latency requirements exist? What legacy systems have to integrate? What compliance or security constraints exist in your actual environment? Build your pilot to run on your actual infrastructure, not an ideal infrastructure. If you're not running on your real tech stack, Thanks for listening. If you found this valuable, please subscribe to Apex Minds D4J for more powerful insights. See you in the next one.